Hi everybody. I thought I'd do a little show on good and evil because I had some people getting in touch with me saying about how do we differentiate between good and evil? Well, I think we differentiate good and evil through our conscience, but that's my opinion. So I'm coming here with some Gurdjieff quotes here. So I wanted to start with one from Life is Real Only Then When I Am, page 170. The matter in which the soul is coated can be produced exclusively by the action of these two forces, which are called good and evil by ancient science, or affirmation and negation, while contemporary science calls them attraction and repulsion. And it is a kind of an attraction or a repulsion, isn't it? And good and evil have many definitions in different religions, different faiths, different peoples. But I'm wondering if perhaps with the Gurdjieff work, we have to look at what is good and evil for us. Though he states we shouldn't put things into good or evil categories. As I've said before about the pendulum, you've got good on one side, evil on the other. We want to be in the middle, the balanced part of it. But we are aware that things happen that are good or evil. We have our own, like I was saying, views of what's good and what's evil. So let's continue with a bit of what what he says. So from All and Everything, page 287. That in the objective sense, maleficent idea, which they themselves call good and evil, which idea, strictly speaking, was the chief factor for the gradual dilution of their general psyche. So it's in your general psyche. How is your general psyche looking at good and evil, or contemplating good and evil? And obviously, we're trying to look at this in an objective sense, not a subjective sense. And to most people, good and evil is coming from a subjective way of thinking. I think it's good that we try and do this work so that we're working with his endlessness and the divine source and being part of the cosmic workings. And I think it's evil when we ignore this kind of thing and don't want to participate in it, or don't even know. Maybe if we don't know how to participate, that's a bit different because we need to learn. But if we're aware of it and we don't do it, I think that could be classed as evil, or between good and bad. It's what suits us. But Ouspensky writes in Search of the Miraculous, page 52 on the book, it is precisely in unconscious involuntary manifestations that all evil lies. Unconscious involuntary manifestations. And we are trying to do conscious voluntary manifestations back out to the divine source to be part of the harmonious workings of the universe and the cosmos. So he's saying it's evil when we don't partake, it's good when we do. And Gurdjieff goes on in All and Everything, page 695. Oh no, that's one I've just done. Sorry, page 342. Every action of a man is good in the objective sense if it is done according to his conscience. And every action is bad if from it he later experiences remorse. And Gurdjieff goes on quite a bit about remorse. As we know, we're supposed to be having remorse of conscience and becoming aware of using that remorse to help us understand ourselves and develop ourselves. And I had a remorse quote here. Sorry, let me just find the page. I've been a bit dilly-dally. I thought I'd put a bookmark in. Remorse. Subjective, hopeless idiot has come to the place where he knows he is hopeless. He has realized he is nothingness, that he is a non-entity. And that's from Not. And I should do a show on remorse, really, because it's quite important. So going on about good and evil. So this is page 1125, All and Everything. That in the objective sense, oh, no, I've done that bit. I keep repeating the same one. Maybe I need to just say it again. That in the objective sense, maleficent idea, which they themselves call good and evil, which idea, strictly speaking, was the chief factor for the gradual dilution of their general psyche. Next quote, page 1125. The fundamental cause of the whole abnormality of the psyche of the free brain beings arising there was that a very definite notion arose and began to exist, that outside the essence of beings, as it were, there are two dramatically opposite factors, the sources of good and the sources of evil, which are just the instigators for all their good and bad manifestations. This universally disseminated idea dominates their common psyche at their responsible existence and becomes, on the one hand, a tranquilizer and justifier for all their manifestations, and on the other hand, the fundamental impeding factor for the possibility which arises in certain of them for the self-perfecting of their higher being parts. And we don't want it to impede us because we want to develop our higher being parts. So we need to understand where we're coming from regarding good and evil and whether we're doing the right thing to help develop ourselves. And he's saying also here that this universally disseminated idea dominates their common psyche at their responsible existence. And we're trying to be responsible beings, responsible human beings. That's what we want to go forth and be, which is a good thing. And he says on 1140 of All and Everything, the fantastic notion that outside of them there exist objective sources of good and evil acting upon their essence. The fundamental evil for all these unfortunates, that maleficent idea about external good and evil. And we all like blaming others for why things are going wrong. We like to pass the buck and blame others when we're not standing up for ourselves or perhaps doing the right action. Obviously, there are things out there that are out of our control. You know, like how the climate is, if you're into the climate's being destroyed, or the animals are dying off because of the way us humans live. You know, I'm a bit like that. And so I try and do what I can for it. Obviously, I can't wage a one-woman war against them all, but if I can stand up and say my truth about what I think against this and perhaps change some other people's minds of what they believe, then they've got to find it in their conscience what they want to think is either good or bad. I think what a lot of this kind of work is about is trying not to ignore what's going on, whether it's in your own life or in the outside world, and what we can do for the better. You know, we know there's lots of injustices in the world and we like to blame it on evil. You know, I'm one of the believers of that, you know, the dark forces walk this planet. I'm quite from a Gnostic point of view of that the dark forces are trying to tempt us away from God. So they will do everything they can to knock our psyche, knock our conscience, knock our beliefs, to make us give up, to make us negative, make us perhaps, instead of going forward in a more justified way of thinking or a more conscious way of thinking, they try to slip us up by filling us with anger and hatred for what's going on when we see evil happening. We've got to remember there's lots of good things happening out there as well, and try and, you know, find out about the good things that are happening and get involved with them yourselves. You know, there's lots of good charities or good independent people doing good works that always need some help in some kind of way. You know, whether it's someone saving animals on their own and needs help, having them taken to the wildlife sanctuary once they've been rescued because they've been hurt by someone or hurt themselves, you know, to, I don't know, knitting for charities. I know there's another charity where they knit teddy bears for to send out to all the children from refugees, because teddy bears are very important for little children. They need something to hold on to and to have I know it's an identity with, but little children do need them. You know, a comfort blanket in a way it is for them, but that's another charity. But you know, you find the ones that you want to be involved with and work with, and do something or start your own. Do what you think is right, what is good. Don't let people stop you doing good deeds, because that happens. So All and Everything, page 1144. None of them even suspects that if every kind of villainy proceeds among them in general, then they do these villainies exclusively only because, existing wrongly, they thus permit to be formed in them their inner evil god, self-calming, and which has absolute dominion over the whole of their psyche, and for which only this idea of external good and evil is necessary. Self-calming, so easy just to calm ourselves down when we rise up on our little horses against some injustice that we've seen and feel, how can I help? I can't do anything, I'm just little me. But we can do things. We have the way. If we can open up our conscience, the right way will come along and help us. We find excuses to not do things, and we've got to try not to do that. That's an evil thing, of trying to find ways out of getting to do the work or putting ourselves forward, or, you know, maybe that's the dark forces trying to hold you back. But you've got to get over that and go forward in the light. And Gurdjieff writes on page 1238, hell and paradise do indeed exist, but only not there in that world, but here beside us on the earth. You know, remember Gurdjieff calls this planet the lunatic asylum, mainly because, you know, things are run illogically. Maybe the wrong people are in power that don't have a conscience and aren't using their conscience, their hearts, and instead using their selfish ways. But, you know, that's my own opinion. You've got to find yours. You've got to find what is hell and what is heaven or paradise. And remember, it's within us as well. We can be both good and evil within us. And there's nothing wrong with having a dark shadow side. Sometimes it's useful for using when we need to stand up for ourselves as spiritual warriors. We've just got to not let it overtake us when we don't really need it, when we're tempted to explode for no reason, or because someone's done something silly, or someone's annoyed us, someone's trodden our corns, as Gurdjieff says. We need to be a spiritual warrior and use that darker side of ourselves, like anger, for justice, or so forth. You know, you know what to do. Hopefully, go and read the books is the important thing. And we've got to find the balance of heaven and paradise within us, and hell and paradise within us, because we have it. We all have it. No one is perfect. No one is an angel. No one has only heaven in them. We've all got dark shadows, and sometimes it's something we want to ignore, and we shouldn't be. We should be facing them and seeing what they are and how we can use them in a more positive way that's not selfish, not hurting anybody else, but is doing something for the better for the planet and ourselves and the whole cosmos. But from views from the real world, Gurdjieff now says on page 244, it is more productive to forget about what you call good and bad and to act only when you have learnt to choose for yourself. This is what we need to do: self-observe, self-analyze. I know we don't like to use that word, but become aware of what feels right to us and what feels wrong, and what we can do about it, and how we can handle it, and how it affects us, and whether we react or we act upon it. And views from the real world, page 101. What you like, whether good or bad, is of the same value. Good is a relative concept. Only if you begin to work, your good and bad begin to exist. And I was going to do some knots. Let me just find the knot. Right, okay. C.S. Knott's done a little prayer that maybe we should all be reciting. O Lord Creator, and all you his attendants, help me to be able to remember myself at all times, in order not to take unconscious steps which alone lead to evil, or in order that I may avoid involuntary actions, for by these alone can evil manifest itself. So coming back to, we want to do voluntary actions. We want to know what we're doing. We want to be aware of what we're doing. We want to be conscious of what we're doing and use our conscience at the same time. And Margaret Anderson says, which could be relevant to today, if you are holding up a cosmic scheme, you're evil. Understanding an effort equals right. Failure to observe them equals evil. And obviously we're trying to work with the cosmic scheme. And if we're not doing it, then we're holding it up. And we don't want to be holders up of it. And in a way of stopping it, we want to be working with it and going forth and working with the whole cosmic scheme that his divine endlessness, is the divine source, has put forward. And Knott says, C.S. Knott, the dualist or idealist school of morality in Babylon assumed the existence in the world of two principles, good and evil. We find in ourselves the tendency to classify things thus, not only in relation to ourselves, but absolutely. If I say this is good in itself, I'm applying my personal judgment. This double use of the word good is the cause of most of our confusion. And it's true, isn't it? We do classify things into good and bad. We need to understand the whole of everything as usual. It's all holistic, and everything has a lot more going on to it than just the little snippets that we see happening. We need to see the whole picture. And Knott continues, the absolute presents two features, the status quo and movement, the static and dynamic features. These two presuppose a plan or design necessitating the maintenance and development of the universe. This development can be called the plan of campaign, and the status quo is the army for carrying it out. The plan has as its objective the development of the potentialities of all the constituent beings of the total plan. The realization of the plan is the attainment of objective reason, the fulfillment of the being of each being. And that's what we're trying to do, fulfill our being so that we become the full being that we're supposed to be, the true being that we want to be, real man, real woman. The plan is to be carried out by all beings, conscious and unconscious. A potentiality of beings is to be conscious of the plan and to develop the will to cooperate with it. The attainment of a state of conscious cooperation with the plan may be defined as good. Failure to cooperate is evil. And Knott was told this by Orage, one of my favourite, again, books. You know, I recommend reading the Orage books and the Knott books, not just the Gurdjieff books. You know, everything goes in deeper and deeper, and they explain how they learned from the Gurdjieff work and how they changed themselves. But we all want to be part of the divine plan. We want to go forward. I like to say love and light. So I know love and light sometimes seems all hippy dippy kind of stuff, and that there is darkness out there, but we need to work on it. As Rudolf Steiner says, we need to carry the light into the darkness.